Okay, Emma, please.
Well, I feel that my voice is sorely lacking on the majority report.
Wait, whoa. Look, Sam is unpopular.
I do deserve a vacation at Disney World. So, ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to welcome Emma to the show.
It is Thursday.
Yeah, I think you need to take over for Sam.
Yes, please.
No. I'm gonna pause you right there.
Wait, what?
You can't encourage Emma to live like this. And I'll tell you why. She was offered a tour, sushi, and poker with the boys. Tour, sushi, and poker with the boys. She was offered a tour, sushi, and poker with the boys.
What?
Tour, sushi, and poker.
Tim's upset.
Tour, sushi, and poker with the boys. She was offered a tour, sushi, and that's what we call the biz. Tour, sushi, and poker with the boys.
Right.
Tour, sushi, and poker.
We're gonna get demonetized.
I just think that what you did to Tim Pool was mean.
Free speech.
That's not what we're about here. Look at how sad he's become now. You shouldn't even talk about it. I think you're responsible.
I probably am in a certain way, but let's get to the meltdown here.
Tour, sushi, and poker with the boys.
Oh my God.
Tour,
Wow.
sushi. I'm sorry, I'm losing my fucking mind. She was offered a tour, sushi, and poker with the boys.
Logic.
Tour, sushi, and poker with the boys. Boy. Tour. I think I'm like a little kid. I think I'm like a little kid. I think I'm like a kid. Tour. I think I'm like a little kid. I think I'm like a little kid. I had this debate 7,000 times. A little kid. I think I'm like a little kid. I think I'm like a kid. Tour. I'm losing my fucking mind.
Some people just don't understand.
So I'm not trying to be a dick right now, but like I absolutely think the U.S. should be providing me with a wife and kids.
That's not what we're talking about here. Okay, all right.
It's not a fun job. Tour.
That's a real thing. That's a real thing. Real thing.
Willy Wonka tour.
That's a real thing. That's a real thing. Real thing.
What's that offered a tour?
That's a real thing. That's a real thing. Real thing. That's a real thing. That's a real thing. Real thing.
What's that offered a tour?
Ladies and gentlemen, Joe Rogan has done it again.
That offered a tour?
That's a real thing. That's a
Poker with the boys.
I think he might be blowing it out of proportion.
real thing. That's a
Poker with the boys. That offered a tour?
That's a real thing. That's a
Poker.
Let's go, Joey.
Tour. Sushi and poker with the boys.
Take it easy there.
Tour. Sushi and poker.
Things have really gotten out of hand.
Sushi and poker with the boys.
Delusional.
Tour.
Deluded.
Sushi.
You don't have a clue as to what's going on. Live YouTube.
Sam has like the weight of the world on his shoulders. Sam doesn't want to do this show anymore. It was so much easier when the majority report was just you. You were happy.
Let's change the subject.
Rangers and Knicks are doing great.
Now shut up. You don't want people saying reckless things on your program.
That's
No.
one of the most difficult parts about this show.
This is a pro-killing podcast.
I'm thinking maybe it's time we bury the hatchet.
Left is best. Trump Violet.
Tour.
Don't be foolish and don't fucking tweet at me and don't bitch. The way this cucked all of these people. Love it.
That's where my heart is. So I wrote my honors thesis about it.
Oh,
Sorry.
she wrote an honest thesis. I guess I should hand the main mic to you now.
You are to the right of the foreign policy.
We already fund Israel, dude. Are you against that?
That's a tougher question I have an answer to.
Incredible theme song.
Hi, Bumbler.
Emma Vigeland, absolutely one of my favorite people. Actually, not just in the game, like period.
That's sweet.
Now I have that stuck in my head. The sushi with the boys. That's all my head.
It's
so good. It's so good.
It's so good. I get like anxious listening to myself talk, but other than that, it's very good. And the animation is amazing. Us holding up, or Sam and I just basically being like archangels or something like that is pretty good. I don't think we'll take calls today, folks. It's already 1:30 and there's so much we have to get to, so I'm just making a unilateral decision. Oh boy. Let's since we've been talking about the mayoral race, let's just get into this now. So there was an event, I guess it was yesterday at this point, where a bunch of the mayoral candidates went and spoke at a union hall.
It was a candidate forum sponsored by DC 37, which is like one of the largest like public sector unions in the city.
Right. And Eric Adams didn't even bother to show up. He cited the advice of his lawyers. You should step aside, but sure. Although we do know that, if I guess it's a late March date, where if he steps aside or is removed after that, then they won't have to hold a special election, giving some sort of advantage to a guy like Andrew Cuomo. And I guess I think we can ride it out for a month, hopefully, because I don't want a special election prior to the primary, because right now, Zoran Mamdani has a lot of momentum. I mean, he's in polling second behind Andrew Cuomo. He keeps skyrocketing in the polls. All I'm seeing in terms of attacks against him are, the usual, a socialist. And, wow, he stood up against the Israeli genocide of Palestinians at a protest. Why don't you guys keep repeating that? There were many, many New Yorkers who stayed home in this last election cycle, and they cite the genocide of Palestinians as the reason for that. So I don't think that's the gotcha that they think it is. But here is this clip when asked about if they support a rent freeze, and you can see the reaction from the members of this union when Zoran answers.
Will you support a rent freeze?
No.
Okay, Brad.
If the data supports it.
Will you support a rent freeze?
If the data supports it.
Can we just stop?
Yeah.
That's Brad Lander. So I saw Brad Lander at a Zateo documentary event. One of the, he went to see it. I was like, oh, maybe, he's got good politics. That was a horrible answer.
Brad Lander also there's an old op-ed he wrote in sort of criticizing Zionist, support of massacres years ago, not in this current Gaza massacre. And I thought that's a good thing to say. I think it was in a Missouri paper or something like that. This is exactly what we don't need. Is this sort of technocratic BS. I got a plan. Check the data. The data's in, buddy. Nobody can pay rent. Freeze it. I'm sick of this. This is, and I think he might win. I don't know. The way the Democratic primary voters vote, I'm concerned about the type of Rorschach test we're about to be subjected to if Zoran doesn't run away with it. I'd love to be surprised by that. But this is a problem within the Democratic primary electorate that this speaks to people.
And I mean, Brad Lander's the guy to have at the very end of your ranked choicing picks, I guess. He's better than some of the other picks up there, but there are people who are definitely preferable.
Yeah. So I just wanted to make sure that people, the first no was Zellner Myrie.
Oh yeah,
he was emphatic with that. He came out right away. Didn't even wait. Nope.
will not be ranking Zellner Myrie.
Yeah, he's not even on the list for me.
Yeah.
If the data supports it.
Let's get that full one again, Bradley. Sorry, I want to get the full Brad Lander lame answer. Yeah.
Will you support a rent freeze?
No.
Okay, Brad.
If the data supports it.
Will you support a rent freeze?
If the data supports it.
Yes.
He shrugs.
Wait, respectfully, just to be clear, this is for rent stabilized apartment. That's the question, right? Will you support a rent freeze?
Absolutely.
Scott?
Oh boy.
Scott?
Can I get a minute?
No.
No.
Okay, Brother Blake. Will you support a rent freeze?
Yes.
Jessica?
Claro que sí.
Will you support?
So that's Michael Blake and Jessica Ramos who said yes, and who was that? Scott Stringer who said no?
Scott Stringer, yeah. He was the last time around he was trying to be the progressive in the race, and then he got Me Too'd. So
there's a lot of that in this race. There's a lot of that. I mean, Andrew Cuomo apparently
we got a lot of Me
Too's.
And last I checked, Anthony Weiner's thinking about throwing his hat in the ring.
Might as well.
I mean, why don't the ghost of Jeffrey Epstein should run? I mean, why not?
He might win based on how New Yorkers vote, honestly.
Spitzer, bring him back. But before I go to this study, Brandon.
Look at the mayors we've had. When you look at the mayors for the past couple of decades, it is amazing how Bill de Blasio somehow comes out on top. That's how bad our mayors are, that Bill de Blasio looks good in comparison.
He's definitely the best one.
And why? Because he did a major public initiative.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yes. Everyone thinks of universal pre-K, and it's Bill de Blasio's doing.
Yeah.
Michael Bloomberg, Eric Adams, Rudolph Giuliani. Like, that's who we voted for.
We can hopefully break from that and show the rest of the country that we're actually sane, because this is the story that I wanted to really pair this clip with. This came out in the New York Times yesterday. Astounding. It's a study that was done by Columbia University and Robinhood together. And I just want to give some of these statistics for people. A quarter of New York City residents don't have enough money for staples like housing and food. And many say they cannot afford to go to the doctor, according to a report that underscores the urgency of an affordability crisis elected officials are struggling to confront. The report by a research group at Columbia University and Robinhood, an anti-poverty group, found that the share of New Yorkers in poverty was nearly double the national average in 2023 and had increased by 7 percentage points in 2 years. The spike is in part due to the expiration of government aid that was expanded during the pandemic. And then just another paragraph down, this is just incredible in a bad way. The report is part of a roughly 13-year study that surveys a representative sample of more than 3,000 households in New York City. Researchers use a different metric than the federal government to measure poverty, taking into account income, non-cash support like tax credits, and the local cost of living. Under that metric, the poverty threshold for a couple with 2 children in a rental household in New York City is now $47,190. The study found that 58% of New Yorkers, or more than 4.8 million people, were in families with incomes below 200% of the poverty line. About $94,000 for a couple with 2 children, or $44,000 for a single adult. Poverty rates among Black, Latino, and Asian residents were about twice as high as the rate for white residents, according to the report. It also says that 26% of children in New York City live in poverty, according to this analysis. This is the hidden crisis in America. And it's hidden because our traditional economic numbers do not reflect what is happening in our country right now, particularly in areas like New York City, where the housing crisis is as acute as anything, and because real estate developers have decided to make New York into a Disney World for tourists and to make real estate associations as much money as possible selling luxury developments as opposed to actually making this livable. Zohran Mamdani is the candidate that can change all of that. And there were others, right? Like Blake Ramos said yes, that they would endorse a rent freeze. But Mamdani is the front runner that supports it, and he's the one that's introduced it into the debate. The concept of a rent freeze. This is the kind of thing that can help our city. We have it at our fingertips right now. And by God, Andrew Cuomo couldn't even be bothered to show up there, by the way, to that event. We better have learned that lesson.
That's very purposeful. He doesn't want any attention until the very last minute, because he knows the more time there is to look into his record. And I mean, it's not that long ago what he has been accused of. And even if you put aside, like, even if the sexual assault allegations or sexual harassment allegations aren't enough for voters, I mean, there's so much more when it comes to Andrew Cuomo. Off the top of my head, just think about the IDC. I mean, to me, like, people love to think about what Andrew Cuomo did from the bully pulpit during COVID with Trump in charge. But really what he should be known for COVID is the mass death of our seniors, because he forced them all back into their senior homes, and they all passed it to each other, and there were mass deaths in these homes because of it.
Yep.
New York Post has Cuomo at 38%, Zohran at 12%, Eric Adams at 10%, Lander at 7%. I would say, look, Michael Blake, like that answer. Don't like that you're an Obama guy. I would say endorse Zohran if you're so sincere about it. I would say the same to Jessica Ramos, who has had 1%. I'm not here to just hear good ideas. Zohran has both the organization and the polling. None of every other candidate is superfluous as far as I'm continuing. Now, I will probably make a rational ranked choice vote, but as for right now, it is Zohran, 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 and Zohran.
Yep. We need to put all our energy behind making him the front runner for the left, and not do what we did last time, which was split the vote at the last minute, which allowed Eric Adams to win.
We should, at the very least, do what I don't know if you guys remember what what's his face, Andrew Yang, and that other person who was running, how they formed like a coalition telling each other's voters to rank each other. Should at least be doing that at the very least. If you're not going to drop out, at least tell your voters to vote, giving them a whole ticket to vote for.
Yep. Yeah.
There's going to be funny business with this race.
Right. Also, I don't know if all the progressives would actually line up behind Zoran. Like I
would
expect
imagine
that.
at least
I expect that from Ramos, at the very least. But Lander and Stringer and Blake, I don't know if they would even tell their voters that it should be their second, third, or even ranked choice at all. They seem like the types that might be anti Zoran.
Yep. Jerry at the beach says, I think Eric Adams should set his sights larger. President of the United States of America, all the way with E to the A. Future looks bright. He should. But apparently, what did he say? People coming after him is the modern Mein Kampf.
Yeah, it's the modern Mein Kampf. He had a really big doozy the other day too.
Oh right. Yeah. He compared himself to Jesus Christ. Here we go.
So, this is a biblical moment. When Jesus was on the cross, he said, God, forgive them, for they know not what they do. All these Negroes who are asking me to step down, God, forgive them.
He's enjoying it.
Are you stupid?
What? Who's he talking to?
I mean, my guess is Jamadi Williams, chiefly, but
okay.
People who are asking him, saying that he needs to step down.
Did you guys see that
who were telling him he needs to step down?
Did you guys see he was actually pressed on this by, of all places, Good Day New York, like really well? Like I dropped the link in the chat. The anchors are like talking to him and refuse to get off topic on this. It's fantastic. I don't know if you want to play a little bit of it.
Let's play it.
It's really good.
Back to an event you had at the Gracie Mansion last night, where you spoke about Black History Month, and in it you said, quote, all these Negroes who are asking me to step down, God forgive them. Are you implying that if you're black, you have to support you?
No, not at all. I'm asking for all New Yorkers to support me.
So who are you specifically talking to when you say Negroes?
Well, who has stepped down? Who has asked me to step down? If you look at that whole speech,
everyone.
The speech talked about the continuation of lighting your flame and continue to light and shine. And that's what we've done in this administration with our team. So those who have called for me to allow my flame to prematurely be extinguished, that's who I'm talking about.
So you're saying all New Yorkers are Negroes?
I thought I was very clear in my definition of what I said. All New Yorkers, we got 8.3 million New Yorkers, 8.3 million people didn't call for me to step down. I get just the opposite when I'm in the streets.
What?
So anybody who's black who calls for you to step down, they need help from God. I'm focusing on this because your use of the word Negro has come up repeatedly over the last couple of weeks. And I think some people actually have an issue with that term. So explain who you're talking to when you use that term specifically.
I didn't say they need help from God. I said pray for them. Wasn't that what I said?
You said, quote, God forgive them.
Exactly. Let's pray for them. Let's focus on this for a moment. Isn't our democracy is based on who the people of the city elect? Why are we trying to disrupt and take the power away from the people of the city who elected me to be the mayor? And then ask the question, what have I done that we're going to usurp that power from the people? I have not been
getting indicted.
Of a crime. I've moved the city forward. I've done the job that New York is.
You're being extorted publicly.
And so when you have those that are trying to usurp the power of the voting rights of the people, that is not democracy, and God forgive them.
Okay, when you take a look at it.
If you ain't with Eric, you ain't black. And weren't there opinion pieces about how Eric Adams is the new type of Democrat in the vein of Biden, but younger?
Literally the future of the Democratic Party.
Nate Silver said it.
Thank you, Nate Silver. Now, Eric Adams is using the same, tired arguments that Biden was in the 2020 primary when it looked like he might lose, basically telling black people that if you're not, or if you're not with me, if you ain't with Biden, or it wasn't in the primary. I guess it was against Trump. It's still inexcusable. But anyway.
All we need is someone to ask Adams if he's thought about dropping out, and for Eric Adams to go, I'm staying in the race.
I just think it's so funny to compare yourself to Jesus, and then like call everyone who is asking you for a step down like a Negro. That's exactly what Jesus would do. Like, although he did seem to also
forgive them for they know what they do.
Yeah, exactly. Forgive those Negroes for they know not what they do. That's exactly what Jesus said, because he was black, obviously, so he spoke like that.
My personal favorite was Eric Adams insisting that he said, pray for them. And then he's quoted with what he actually said, which was not pray for them. And he goes, exactly.
Exactly.
I mean,
not
look,
enough
you can
Go ahead.
I mean, you can tell he's secretly conservative by that victim complex he has on full display. He should start carrying a cross around with him. So like whenever he's like feeling, unappreciated, he can nail himself to it.
That should honestly be the imagery on his campaign.
That would be great.
Eric Adams for New York, and then find some way to make one of the letters into an actual cross. Not enough T's in there, but
the movie 12 Years a Slave is actually based on the mayoral tenure of Eric Adams. People don't know that because it was written and produced before like he became
Don't give
mayor.
him any ideas. He's gonna come out and say this. He absolutely is gonna come out and say this.
There's no way he's seen 12 Years a Slave.
He's now invoked Hitler and then also the word Negro to describe what he's going through right now.
What did he say? Hitler thing. What did he say about Hitler?
He said this is the modern Mein Kampf, and what he meant, I guess, was that it's a big lie that he's like compromised and shouldn't be the mayor anymore.
But Mein Kampf is not the big lie to refer to. That's Hitler's book.
Well, I guess within Mein Kampf, he does talk about the thing where, look, all these other sort of degenerate cosmopolitans are lying all the time with small petty stuff. We can lie about big stuff and get away with it, which I haven't read Mein Kampf, but I guess it's in there, yeah.
Well,
then how do you feel? Then how can you critique our lovely mayor if you haven't taken the time to read his favorite book, Mein Kampf?
Right. I guess we have the clip here. This was his. Okay, so he's referring to Hitler's big lie. Yes, right. But why are we invoking Hitler at all is the question. Here we go.
Well,
Reverend, and I remember listening to some of Dr. King's teaching, and he talked about the book Mein Kampf. And he indicated if you tell a lie long enough, loud enough, people will tend to believe it's true. And that's what you're seeing right there, right now. Modern day Mein Kampf. And so we need to break this down in this proper analysis. One of the largest voices out there that is calling for me to step down is the public advocate. I still don't know what he does. Exactly. Because it's hard to really serve the city when you wake up at noon.
All right, I think we get the gist. I mean, he's indecipherable, so anyway.
He's not even
Kyle
like...
Lex says 12 years a mayor. 12 years a mayor.
God forbid. That was... We don't need 12 years of Eric Adams. Right. We had 12 years of Bloomberg.
Well, what they say, if you ask for him to step down, they just like put a big N on you.
Yeah. I mean, it's really incredible just like how bad he is. Like he's bad. Like he doesn't even have like any sort of good defining quote unquote moments. Like even Giuliani's got his 9/11 moment for him. Like Eric Adams has nothing. He's been a net negative on the city in totality. I don't even know who is an Adams guy. Like I even understand the people who are Bloomberg people. There was a constituency that Bloomberg served. Eric Adams literally just serving nobody.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess the real estate companies, especially if you're a Turkish real estate company. But other than that.
Yeah. Recovery Mode says Eric Adams feels like a Nick Mullen bit. Jesus Christ says, I don't condone Mayor Adams. I have no connection to him professionally or personally. Noah from Tampa can't spell American Dream without Eric. Jerry at the beach says, I think, oh wait, I already read that one. Morpheus, hey Emma, speaking of New York politics, did you see that Lieutenant Governor Delgado has announced he won't be running on the ticket with Hochul in 2026? There's a lot of speculation he's going to primary challenge her. He's 100% going to primary challenge her. Richie Torres has also been listed in articles about potentially primarying her, but I actually think Delgado beating him to the punch, like what lane does Richie Torres have? I mean, he'd probably be to the right of both of them, frankly, but I don't know what Delgado's positions are, so it's hard for me to say I support him for the a primary challenge without knowing that fully. But it seems like it's likely to be to the left of Hochul, and if that's the case, I'll support him. But I don't know what his platform is going to be. I got to wait and see. He's going to do it, though.
I mean, what we can say is Hochul sucks. Her belated support for the congestion pricing, it would have been nice if it just went through when it was planned, so we'd have even more time and a more severe congestion pricing. So we shouldn't credit her for that, standing up to Trump, and she's also attacking anti-Israel protesters. So screw her.
Oh, she's attacking Palestinian history, period.
Right.
She had CUNY. This wasn't even anything to do with specifically like an anti-Israel or anything like that, or even anti-Zionist per se. It was literally
colonialism.
A job posting from CUNY, the city of New York, CUNY college, looking for a Palestinian history teacher, and because the topics mentioned in the job post included colonialism and genocide, which are clearly part of Palestinian history, unfortunately, she had them take the posting down, and she called it anti-Semitic.
Yep. Atrocious.
I mean, you don't even need to even talk about recent current events to include the word genocide and colonialism in Palestinian history.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, the city, I mean, New York last night just had an orange Empire State Building for those that killing about the Bebas children. And, you know, I see a lot of like a Jewish Voice for Peace person made the point, like, what do Zionists expect from this sort of stuff? That we're all going to forget the thousands and thousands and thousands of bodies that Israel has produced with bombs by killing Palestinians over the last year with some like sort of atrocity propaganda. And the truth is, yes. And it's not because of anything to do with really Israel, except the structure that they're in, which is settler colonial, exactly what that CUNY job placement wanted to study, because settler colonialism will do that. That's why captivity narratives are probably the oldest genre of American literature, because you like to emphasize the person got captured by the indigenous folks, but then they're back to us to tell us how great now they even have a greater understanding of Jesus. This is just what settler colonial societies will do until there's actually an effort to get that impulse under control and treat people like people and give them one vote. And it's interesting, like Chomsky and Finkelstein, I saw something about them. They were both originally like sort of two-state solution folks, but coming to the realization that there's no way to move forward unless it is one person, one vote within that territory. And that means that Israel can no longer exist as it does, which is, to state plainly, a ethno-state that is designed to maintain one demographic and minimize another.
Yep, 100%. Just to broaden this out a little bit to what's been happening at the federal level. So some blue state Republicans are trying to sound the alarm to Donald Trump about these Medicaid cuts, because he's saying publicly, and I guess there are some people that believe Donald Trump at his word at this point, which is shocking to me, because he's probably the most notorious liar in American history. He's saying that he doesn't want to cut Medicaid, but the Republican House budget slashes Medicaid to the bone. Now, there was a piece in the Washington Post today that Representative Jeff Van Drew, he's a Republican in New Jersey, which is a blue state, is talking to Trump, among other blue state Republicans. Hey, Medicaid provides health coverage for like 1 in 5 Americans, 41% of births nationwide, basically half of coverage and care, or at least it helps around half of kids with special needs. 83 million low-income Americans are a part of Medicaid programs. 5 in 8 nursing home residents. I mean, this would be so devastating for our elderly in nursing homes. And it's more, there are 41 out of the 50 states in this country have Medicaid expansion. There are 9 Republican states that still resisted it. That was a part of the Affordable Care Act, where essentially the federal government pays for all of it, and then they split the administrative costs, the federal government and the state government. So, like, it's barely skin off the back of these red states. But this is the policy of conservatism. This is their ideology. They want to immiserate people so that they continue to be in the workforce and can be exploited. And they can transfer more wealth to the top of the income threshold. So Ben Shapiro responded to this and talked about Medicaid. It's been a fun kind of year and a half to watch Ben Shapiro struggle in the Republican rebrand of being economic populists, which is not a thing, but they try to pretend they're for everybody. And you have Ben Shapiro chiding people for celebrating the death of that United Healthcare CEO. And most of his audience is like, wait, I'm on board with this. And then I'd be curious to see how his audience responds to this kind of thing, this kind of coverage of Medicaid, because almost everybody knows somebody who or has been on Medicaid, because 1 in 5 Americans benefit from it. This is Ben Shapiro's take.
So the House Energy and Commerce Committee is responsible with coming up with $880 billion in the savings. But the reason the Democrats are saying that's all coming from Medicare and Medicaid is because the House Energy and Commerce Committee presides over programs like Medicare and Medicaid. So House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, he, of course, is suggesting that's exactly where all the cuts are going to come from. They're going to come from Medicare. They're going to come from Medicaid. They're not going to come from Medicare. President Trump does not want any cuts to Medicare. Medicaid is a bit of a different story, and we'll get into that in a moment, because the truth is Medicaid is one of the great boondoggles in American public policy. We expend literally hundreds of millions of dollars a year. We expend literally hundreds of billions of dollars a year on Medicaid, and the returns on Medicaid are truly atrocious, just speaking in terms of public policy, speaking in terms of health outcomes. There's some good studies that actually demonstrate that Medicaid coverage is no better than you having no coverage and just going for emergency care to the hospital. Why? Because the reimbursement rates on Medicaid are so low that doctors don't even take Medicaid. Good doctors don't like taking Medicaid because the reimbursement rates are pennies on the dollar of what they could earn from private insurance.
Pause it. Good doctors don't take Medicaid. Why is that the case? Why do we have tiered healthcare in this country? I mean, he's just being factually, he's correct that there are only certain doctors that take Medicaid, and that's a part of our tiered healthcare system where the wealthy get to benefit from private insurance and top doctors, and doctors who take Medicaid. Yeah, they're maybe more used to taking more low-income patients, and perhaps the care quality isn't as good. That's the problem of an underfunded healthcare system where we have mostly privatized it all. And so Medicaid, a government program, has to compete with the private insurers that are gouging people. I have a proposal for the Department of Government Efficiency and the Republicans who are looking to cut out waste, fraud, and abuse they falsely tell us in our government. How about we make it illegal for there to be a private middleman mafia boss in between us and our health care, and make that universal across both income thresholds, if it relates to Medicaid, and disability, and age when we're talking about Medicare.
Because actually, when you talk about bad cost value for money, it is our private health insurance system and our collapsing life expectancy because of that.
And so cutting out waste, fraud, and abuse would mean maybe just make us have one payer, the federal government, for our health insurance. And you know how much costs would go down? Exponentially. So what he's talking about poorer outcomes for Medicaid, which isn't borne out in reality when he says it's better to have no coverage than to have Medicaid coverage, is what he just claimed there. Better to have no coverage than Medicaid coverage. You're serious? If you go into the hospital with a Medicaid card with an emergency, I'm not saying that you're going to be able to have it all covered, But if you go in with an emergency and no health insurance, it could bankrupt you for the rest of your life. What he's saying is completely verifiably false. But then he does that little shift, you can tell, right? When he says the good doctors part. That's when you know he's lying to you.
I mean, he's just trying to gaslight his audience. He's trying to gaslight his audience to get them ready for losing their Medicaid. You're seeing this in, at Republican town halls across America, telling people that like, oh yeah, you might experience some difficulties, but don't worry, it's actually not so bad. And, because he knows his audience, some people in his audience statistically have to be on Medicaid, and they're going to experience that. And he wants them to, have this in the back of their head when they, they're forced to like try to find some way to pay for their health care.
Right.
And family members are going to have to pay for this stuff for seniors, the 6 and 10 that Medicaid covers for nursing home residents.
That's exactly right. And the nursing homes are increasingly being bought up by private equity that are cutting nursing services and healthcare services to extract as much money as possible. So when we talk about waste, or we talk about how we could improve Medicaid, in part, it's because this money is going towards these private entities that are exploiting government services for profit and not giving our nursing people in nursing homes the right amount of care.
Well, I mean, it's a bit of a conundrum now, isn't it? Right? Because like when you talk about like the administrative cost of social programs like a Medicaid, like anything that you're not spending in their minds literally on care must in fact be waste. And we know that's because ideologically they view the whole thing as wasteful. But when like a private company has like 5 times the administrative cost, that's not like waste. That's just like profit. That's profit for them. That's revenue. Like the the government doesn't like operate that way, so it's easy to frame like any spillage as like waste. But in the private sector, like all of that, like all those profits that people tout, like that's the waste for you. Like that's them wasting your money.
Yep. What we really need here is the United Health CEO to come in and tell people what care they can and what care they can't have, because everyone loves that guy, right?
Oh everyone. Populist right that Ben Shapiro is speaking to. And I have this stat, I didn't want to forget it, that so there are 40 states, and I guess 41 now, but in the 40 states from what I have written down that expanded Medicaid under the Affordable Care Act, the states that didn't expand have nearly doubled the uninsured rates of the states that expanded and added Medicaid. 41.1 to 7.5% is the statistic. So if Ben Shapiro is so right about how Medicaid, it's almost the exact same as not having any insurance at all, then why did people voluntarily join the Medicaid rolls and become eligible for it in the states that expanded it and double the rate of the states that didn't? Why did they? So keep going.
Why? Because the reimbursement rates on Medicaid are so low that doctors don't even take Medicaid. Good doctors don't like taking Medicaid because the reimbursement rates are pennies on the dollar of what they could earn.
So make them more. Again, that's the problem. That's the problem.
Because people like you are pinching pennies. Billionaires aren't letting it be as generous or even competently to pay the cost as it should be.
I'm sure. I know his wife's a doctor. I'm sure she's a millionaire along with him. But like, I don't know if we should be reorienting our healthcare policy or continuing to orient it around the profit maximalization of doctors.
Well, yeah, because I mean, that's what's driving the cost up. It's not necessarily a bad thing that the reimbursement rate is low for Medicaid in a vacuum, because it means that the government, by nature of being the government, has like a large amount of like negotiating power. Like we know that what drives up healthcare costs in America is like that, that magic triumvirate of health insurers, large health systems, and pharmaceutical companies that like are creating like a price rising spiral of like, well, you can charge more and you can pay out more and we can charge more, and then it makes everyone rich except for the person looking to get healthcare. That's just there's a slightly different motive when it comes to Medicaid and the administration of Medicaid, which is to maximize like health outcomes for the patient, not to like maximize profits for like the insurance company or the health system. So it's just like it's competing motives. Like that's why it's like it worries more about keeping costs low.
And doctors that are in it for profit are in part the reason we don't have a healthcare system. They are the ones who hired Ronald Reagan back in the 50s to speak against Medicare for all. And the truth is we should be making it much easier to train more doctors by making higher education more available. And any doctor, like Ben Shapiro's wife, presumably, that thinks it would be slavery to work under a public health insurance regime or something like that, should be encouraged to find a new line of work, because that's fucking evil. And those people are disgusting.
It's actually a complete violation of the Hippocratic Oath,
No,
but
exactly.
not to be corny about it.
Those are the people that, like, if there's one group that should be wiped out by AI, it is doctors that think that they should be able to extract maximum profits and drive Benzes around everywhere, as this country is massively undercared for.
Or people who come into that way of thinking because they're $200,000 in debt coming out of medical school, to Matt's point, which is what is a big problem in our healthcare system in particular, is that it's so expensive to become a doctor that it, like student debt more broadly, but specifically with graduate school, and you can apply it to law school, it funnels people into the jobs that will let them pay off their debt as quickly as possible. And that it makes it so that it exacerbates the income and wealth inequality. Billy in Portland says, I was diagnosed with stage 4 ovarian cancer in September 2023, September 2023. Medicaid paid for 7 cycles of chemo, major surgery with 5-day hospital stay, radiation, regular screening CAT scans and MRIs, countless medications, including one that is $37K out of pocket per month, even services to help with chemo side effects like acupuncture. Ben Shapiro can suck on my chemotherapy port that Medicaid paid for. Thank you, Billy, in Portland, for telling us your story. Now, here's Ben Shapiro telling you that having Medicaid is the same as having no health insurance at all.
Medicaid is, in fact, a giant government make-work program that does not have particularly good outcomes. But just as with every giant government make-work program, it has now become a third rail of American politics. Hakeem Jeffries and Democrats are, of course, going to suggest that it's tax cuts for the 1%, and on the basis of that, it's going to be cuts for the poor.
Yep.
Let's be realistic about this. The only people paying taxes in the United States of America on an income level are the people in the top quintile. In terms of net taxes paid, net of benefits received from the government, the only people paying any level of net income taxes in the United States are people in the top income quintile.
This is just verifiably
Everybody else
false.
is receiving on net money from the federal government. So if you're going to cut taxes, who else presumably is going to have their taxes cut? How would that work?
No, the
By the way,
people pay you
it also
back.
happens to be the case that the Trump tax cuts disproportionately affected people in actually the middle income quintiles.
I just can't tell, like, you know, I guess Ben Shapiro's audience is probably pretty old and, like, you know, probably older, upper middle class. Like, but I can't imagine not having hundreds of thousands of dollars in the bank and listening to Ben Shapiro just like talk down to you about how you don't need healthcare and like feeling good about that. Like, it's so like demoralizing. It's like so demeaning, like a very, you know, I can only imagine like the audience must not be comprised of that many people who fall into that category. Or if they do, like, I don't know what they're attracted to in the show. Like, it seems like, you know, half of the show is just like telling you that you don't deserve to live. You don't deserve to be able to live.
Conservatism is by and large like a bunch of very stupid, like 40 to 50-year-old men that will just eat shit entirely. And then you got the rich guys there. Like, the idea that Elon Musk doesn't get, like, we've fully accounted for what he gets from the government by being able to, frankly, privatize NASA for the guy, when Barack Obama in 2009 was saying, look, we need to do something else. We need to bring in private industry to do space stuff. SpaceX was the main company mentioned. Like, and it would not exist if Obama hadn't decided to do that. Same with all this Starlink crap, that he's a government contractor. The self-driving stuff is, he's only allowed to experiment with cameras which don't work as well as LiDAR, which frankly shouldn't be allowed on the road. He's allowed to do that because the government is actually, every self-driving car, not only Teslas, but also the Google ones and all the other ones all over Austin and San Francisco, they are providing American streets as a test environment for corporate benefit. Like, we are all getting screwed. None of us can pay for a fucking house because these guys run the government and they think that they're the ones getting the raw deal. Ben Shapiro is paid to lie to you on behalf of those folks.
He absolutely is. And like it's borne out in the data. How long can this little man gaslight his audience for? We see that we are at levels of income and wealth inequality that are analogous to the Gilded Age and even pre-revolutionary France. So the idea that this is like in any way sustainable and that he can keep saying that rich people are paying more into taxes and his audience is like, okay. I mean, really? How dumb are you? How much of a mark are you? I guess enough to vote for Donald Trump.
He's oh, are you talking about the
his audience?
Yeah, they're stupid. I mean, he's a mercenary.
I mean, honestly, we have seen through the Joe Rogan experience and these online influencers, if you talk with authority, there's about 35% of the country that's just going to automatically think that you have something to say. And that I don't know what to do with. So
I have to.
You don't need to talk with authority. Like I'm seeing people just share whatever bullshit they see that basically, holds up their already preconceived notion of what's going on or their worldview. Like I see people sharing right now an old, I don't even know where it came from, but there's this old like Snopes debunked thing from like the first Trump administration, where Obama received royalty checks every year from the government for the use of the term Obamacare. And I'm
the
seeing
Republicans came up with that.
He should.
But I'm seeing, but I mean specifically where it came from. But now I'm seeing it all of a sudden after not seeing it for like 6 years. It's all over the place again as Doge uncovered that Obama receives $2.5 million of the year for the government to use the word Obamacare. And people online, I've seen it on TikTok, videos of people going crazy over this, screaming at their camera about how their hard-earned tax money is going to Obama. It's not true. It's a lie. There's no Obamacare royalty.
They should have said 2.4 billion. They should have put a B on that. Like that would have made people really upset. That's like big million is barely any like money. Come on.
B for Barack.
B for Barack.
You were talking about how the term Obamacare came from Republicans. Right. It's not even a government used term. I was saying I'm not sure where this specific lie came from. Obviously from like a right winger, but like where it originated, who knows? But people are sharing this shit today.
That was the rare branding. Like most of the time, the Republicans are able to force something, enforce whatever they're doing with DEI now or cancel culture, and make it into some politicized phrase that benefits them. The Obamacare thing did not benefit them. He ended up owning it because turns out
it forced him to own something they actually did, which Democrats never want to do.
Exactly. And I was thinking about that in the context of the checks, where Obama was going out there and saying how Trump signed the stimulus checks as if that's like a bad thing. Oh, wow. He tried to own a policy that he passed. Maybe you guys should try it sometime. And the one time that happened, as Matt says, it kind of worked. Wanted to get to this, broke earlier this morning that Andrew Tate and his brother, who have been charged with human trafficking in Romania, are back in the United States. The United States lifted travel restrictions that had previously been imposed because of the well-documented human trafficking efforts. We had, what's it called? What's the name of that book that we had those guests on with Matt Shea and Jamie Tassin?
Clown World?
Clown World, where they dove deep into the Andrew Tate world and even went to one of his kind of multi-level marketing scheme, pimp.
They're pimps for cam girls. They entrapped young women that were basically looking for any sort of guidance, which is what sort of often happens with sex traffickers. And they were entrapped into making content for them online.
And people should check out that interview if they haven't yet, because it just shows how exploitative and really disgusting this is, where this new kind of online brand of misogyny culture, it's about using women essentially as gig sex workers and then disposing of them after you've exploited them. And it's not necessarily about controlling your wife in the marital sense. It's about humiliating women and tallying a body count, right? It's a very violent form of misogyny. And I think about this a lot, right? And the environment that we're in right now. that the Trump re-election this second time around was a lot of things. I think, it's about mass disaffection with the Democratic Party because of cost of living and housing being out of control. It's about Biden not being unable to use the bully pulpit and communicate with the public, so people didn't know anything about what the Democrats were doing, even the good things. And what they did know was, hey, there's a genocide that's happening on my phone. And then you have, though, broadly, a misogynistic backlash to the Me Too movement. And Trump coming into office kind of generating that energy, or, it was the grab him by the P word tapes, more Me Too, Biden gets elected. And then we have really in this time period, the rise of these misogynistic manosphere influencers, and Trump gets reelected, put up against a black female candidate who we talked about doing violence against openly at his rallies. And you kind of have this toxic misogynistic stew that I think we're living in right now. And frankly, when you look at fascist movements in the past, pairing misogyny with a cost of living crisis, it's had success for fascists historically. So it's scary. And it seems like Trump was integral in freeing Andrew Tate. And oddly, Ron DeSantis is pissed about it. We'll see more about this story, but Tate touched down in Miami, I guess earlier this morning, and Ron DeSanctimonious asked about it at the press conference.
Welcome here. What the state do? Send back to Romania or whatever.
We have no involvement in that. I read about it through the media. Clearly, the federal government has jurisdiction, whether they want to rebuff his entry into the United States, and I have confidence that whether it's Pam Bondi or Kristi Noem, that they will be looking at that. I do know our Attorney General, James Uthmeyer, is looking at what state hooks and jurisdiction we may have to be able to deal with this. But the reality is no, Florida is not a place where you're welcome with that type of conduct in the air. And I don't know how it came to this. We were not involved. We were not notified. I found out through the media that this was something that was happening. Okay, guys.
You know why it happened?
Because the Republicans supported a rapist with a fake university for president?
Kind of. And also, Barron Trump's a fan. Barron Trump's a fan of Andrew Tate and Aiden Ross and those guys. Yeah.
Is Matt Gaetz' seat still open? Because I think Florida District 1 has to be represented by a sex criminal. So they gotta. I think
that's their DEI. Diversity includes some sort of quota for rapists.
Yeah, and I think the real problem is that they're not getting a homegrown Floridian sex criminal. They're importing one. It's like an H-1B visa situation all over again.
They're taking our sex pest jobs. It's fascinating to see this, especially as the Trump administration is loudly advertising that they're going to release the Epstein flight logs. Why don't you release the files that are a little bit more pertinent in this case? I know that some of the stuff is redacted, but they are not going to release, in the same way that Trump is doing this head fake about the JFK files too. They can't release more information than a limited hangout on Epstein because of, Donald Trump's deep and close friendship with Jeffrey Epstein.
Pam Bondi was the Florida Attorney General when Epstein was getting let off. What this stuff is, when Trump talks about it, whether it's the UFO stuff or, which I think is probably the most meaningless of all this, but the UFO stuff or the JFK stuff, is he is announcing that he is taking note of bargaining chips. And if the CIA wants him to, say, not release the redacted Schlesinger memo where JFK talked about what he wanted to do to the CIA, which is one of the ones that is still being withheld, if the CIA doesn't want that released, then they should give him something in return for it, like they did last time, and when he kept it clear. And I mean, also the Epstein stuff, he is, I don't know if Trump was in Dallas in 1963. He is a associate of Jeffrey Epstein, who is also a guy who Jeffrey Epstein fixed up Elon Musk's brother with a girlfriend. So all these guys are insanely implicated with what looks to be, if I had to guess, a massive mutual blackmail operation where they do communal sex crimes. This is just me spitballing. Communal sex crimes and have dirt on everybody else so they know nobody will talk. Because I do know another similarity between Epstein and Elon Musk is they're obsessed with spreading their seed as widely as possible in a really fucking weird way. And I would be shocked if they never discussed that.
Oh, of course. Of course. Just to plug Julie K. Brown here, making this exact point. Brown is the really kind of foremost authority journalist on Jeffrey Epstein. She broke the initial story about the cozy deal that he got from Acosta. Mm-hmm. So she's a Miami-based reporter and has written a book called Perversion of Justice, the Jeffrey Epstein story. She says, it's interesting to note that Pam Bondi was Florida's attorney general 2011 to 2019, a period of time when Jeffrey Epstein's plane records became public, victims' lawsuits were filed, and a lot of new evidence against Epstein surfaced. So questions should be asked why she did not take up the case or launch a probe when she was attorney general in Florida. And we know the answer. We know the answer that there was frankly, an elite conspiracy to prevent Jeffrey Epstein from facing accountability. It seems abundantly clear.
Acosta himself said there was intelligence connections that meant we have to go easy on him.
He was a very important asset to a lot of folks, I think, is what hopefully people are taking away from this, including Israeli intelligence.
Ghislaine Maxwell's father was sort
Mossad.
of Mossad, like not just any Mossad, like high-level Mossad.
So, and then you have former Israeli prime minister riding on Jeffrey Epstein's plane, and Israeli intelligence and U.S. intelligence work very closely together.
And I was saying this because just in the we've talked about this a lot in the context of like why a lot of these cabinet secretaries are like useful for Trump, like Hegseth's proclivities as a drinker, as a allegedly a drinker, and have in his alleged sex crimes as well. They're like an asset to Trump to like use against him. But the same thing with Bondi. Like Bondi's useful in the way that like she's shown that she would do anything for him. When also she dropped the Trump University lawsuit in Florida as well after he donated to her campaign. So she's very much like all of like the good tentacles of like what Trump looks for in a confidant, his own wanting to his own Roy Cohn, as it were, for Attorney General. She embodies, and we've also seen that in like how reticent they are about the Epstein stuff, as we saw from that interview that Trump had last year, where he was like, "That's a little bit more marginal. The Epstein stuff, we don't have to go there."
Yeah, that's not good.
Did you see who just left the White House earlier today? Like the photos.
I did not.
Okay, so there's a group of people who left the White House today, posing for the camera with binders they received from Bondi, labeled the Epstein Files Phase 1. And ready for the list of people who they gave them to?
Who?
The MAGA meme guy on Twitter, DC Drano, former news person turned conspiracy theorist Liz Wheeler, our good friend Mike Cernovich, Jack Posobiec, and libs of TikTok. So this is going to be like
rotation.
This is going to be like Twitter Files, 2.0, where they carefully crafted exactly what to give and who to give it to, and to get out exactly what they want.
Because this is all information. Julie K. Brown again points this out. The second tweet I sent you, Bradley. Just go to the first one she says, and then her reply. There is no Jeffrey Epstein client list, period. It's a figment of the internet's imagination and a means just to slander people. I mean, this isn't to say that there aren't associations that we need to explore.
Like between the Clintons and Jeffrey Epstein.
Which we're not partisan about it. The Clintons and the Trumps, we should be looking into their connections with Jeffrey Epstein.
Should be locking them up.
Yeah, but her response to this person, so obviously there's no list, but just as obvious, the federal government has a file related to Epstein, right? It says, well, if you actually read my book or anyone's, you would know that the FBI file on Epstein is public. Google it in the FBI's vault. It's, however, heavily redacted. So, yes, there's a file. Now, there are redactions that are going to be for victims' names, but there will also be redactions for folks that may be sensitive and a part of it. But the list that they're circulating has already been the subject of like conspiracy theories for quite a while, and the fact that they're handing it to Chaya Raichik.
It's what's known as a shit coat, which is basically a
Yes.
type of a limited hangout of to reveal sort of secrets done in a way that's so stupid and disgusting that most people won't even touch it, which is how most people will view this.
But
the thing is that the folks who care most about who claim to care most about the Epstein list on the right, they're the ones who demean and belittle the actual like people who should be revealed, because they're the ones who constantly share the fake Epstein lists that are out there. Like Tom Hanks's name on the internet is, for whatever you think of Tom Hanks, the actor, his name is forever in the mud because you can't write his name on the internet without people calling him a pedophile. Why do they call him a pedophile? He's done nothing to prove anything like that. It's all because his name appeared on a fake, completely debunked, non-realistic Epstein client list, and they wanted to use that when he came out and like said something pro-COVID vaccines or something to try to hurt his credibility. Now, anytime Tom Hanks, the actor's name, is said online, you have hundreds of people calling him a pedophile.
Yeah. No, it's exactly. I just to connect it to the Andrew Tate stuff. This is just what makes it so ridiculous, like, and has it ring so hollow. Really, do you care about Do you care about groomers? Do you care about groomers, or do you just essentially want to go after LGBTQ people? Really, do you care about sex trafficking, or is this just a way to crack down on immigrants and make a case that another marginalized group that you're targeting is a bunch of people that are targeting folks and kids for sex crimes? I mean, it's just so obvious what they're doing, but
the most vocal
people
ones
fall
are
for it.
the most vocal ones have been proved to be rapists and pedophiles themselves. There is numerous incidents of like Jan 6 folks or people that were really promoting that movie from
Sound of
a year
Freedom.
ago, that they are actual abusers and themselves. But the other thing is so many Trump supporters. I mean, Kevin Sorbo, Minnesota native, alumni of Minnesota State University, like myself. Unlike myself, he is in Jeffrey Epstein's little black book with his full contact details. Also, Jason Calacanis, a venture capitalist, Trump supporter, a big crypto guy, who's one of these guys out here saying, release the client list. You're in the black book, buddy. Like,
wait, Kevin Sorbo is in the black book? I didn't see that.
He is, yeah.
See, that's an example of a guy that should 100% be investigated, because it's not even like he's one of those money guys who ostensibly would have crossed Epstein in like the actual business that Epstein claimed to do, like the financiering stuff. Like, what the hell is some low-level actor doing in Epstein's book if he's not partaking in as a customer in the services that like are within his like his financial range? Like, that's unbelievable that he is in that book.
Yeah,
like, that's not a guy making some big business loans and dealings. That's a guy who's looking for services.
Maybe
Allegedly.
Jeffrey's just a big fan of Sorbo and his work.
Hercules. Yeah, I mean, come on. Who didn't watch the
Name
Hercules?
another thing he's done.
Yeah, I
quick.
can't.
God's Not Dead 1.
God's Not Dead, right?
How could I
You
forget?
picked the wrong person for that question.
I think God's Not Dead 2 is the one that sticks out in my mind. Is that
That's
the
a good one.
courtroom drama with Melissa
Yeah, that's
Joan
the good
Hart?
one. And Ray Wise, yeah, that's a really good one.
I mean, much like I would say the Lord of the Rings series, the middle one is the best, or the second one. Maybe there's God's Not Dead 6, and
I would say
messing
with
it
the
up.
God's Not Dead movie, the even numbered ones are the best. Like 2 and 4 are pretty good, and then 1 and 3 are kind of boring.
Well, the
Although when
odd
Kevin
numbers
Sorbo
would
gets
be
hit by that car,
satanic. So
well, when Kevin Sorbo gets hit by a car in the first one, spoiler, that part's pretty good. But like other than that,
Well, the first one's got the whole like surprise element of like, what am I getting myself into? What the hell is this movie? After that, all the sequels, you know what to expect, so it's not as like, fun, I guess.
not as novel.
Yeah.
I might have to retract the Sorbo in the Black Book thing. That
Did you fall for the fake?
I fall for the fake image. Yeah.
But this is what Brown is saying. Like, this is a show trial. This is theater. They're pretending they're being transparent, and they're trying to mislead people, which is the UFO thing too.
And this just goes like what just happened shows you that like just how these guys have demeaned this to the point where it even left the right wing circles, and now you have people pointing fingers and accusations at all sorts of people who are in Epstein's a book or not. That at this point, who's going to even believe the official thing? People are going to obviously like just say whatever they want to say. I mean, certainly you can't believe who they gave it to. These actors of these right-wing bad actors. But I mean, it's just the whole thing is a shit show.
Yeah.
And being weaponized by the right, which is like how the Democrats let the right sort of make use out of the JFK assassination is sort of why they've also, to the Trita Parsi interview earlier, been unable to be the anti-war party. It's corrupt by this military establishment people.
Yeah. All right, guys, with that, I'm going to read some IMs and then we'll get out of here. Detective Du Bois says, Big Joel on YouTube goes through the movies and his analysis is so funny. Love Big Joel. His rant on Amy Schumer's Zionism in the few months after October 7th was extremely cathartic. If people want to check out Joel. Mike from Texas. Also, don't forget Robert Costa was given a cabinet position despite having zero relevant experience for the Department of Labor. Was he on the list?
I don't know.
I don't know.
I think it's confusing.
You're confusing Alex Acosta with Robert Costa, I think. I was referring to Alexander Acosta from the first Trump term. Yeah. Gold Rush John. When Ben Shapiro says quintile.
Oh, no, he was made Secretary of Labor. Alex Acosta? Yeah.
Right, but he said Robert Costa.
Oh, right.
Yeah, yeah.
I thought he shouldn't have been Secretary of Labor anyway.
Right. David from the Bay, Matt is 100% correct. Places like San Francisco are a beta testing ground for things like self-driving vehicles, and it's dangerous. Years ago, Uber was told to pause their self-driving service by the California Department of Motor Vehicles. Uber got mad and relocated the program to Arizona. Not a couple months later, an Uber self-driving car killed a pedestrian. Yep. Bobby Nafo. Obama and Biden were completely duped by Elizabeth Holmes and Theranos too.
I mean, a lot of idiocy, honestly, to go along with just the corruption.
Seth the Lit PhD. Simply put, increase reimbursements. My wife is a pediatric psychologist, and the issues around Medicare and Medicaid are real, but the issues that the program is underfunded. Classic right-wing policy. Starve and cut. Exactly. If they wanted to make it work, they would make it more so that those doctors are reimbursed more to level the playing field, but that's not what Ben Shapiro wants.
But that's the thing is he gives it away when he says, what do you want rich people to pay more? Obviously, that's not a solution. Like, no, it is. It is very much a solution. We should be absolutely rinsing rich people, and society is not going to get better. None of the issues that we're concerned about will get better. It will get better from Ben Shapiro's standpoint, but nothing's going to get better if billionaires are allowed to continue what they're doing.
Biden My Time says, wow, Adams is in a full breakdown. Didn't realize it was that bad. He is not okay. Yeah. Your Joy, My Socialism. Really disappointed by Brad Lander. I've appreciated he's been pretty good on Palestine, but come on, man. Yeah, that was not a good answer.
This is why I don't call myself a progressive and call myself a socialist. It's exactly what Lander's doing.
Yeah, I mean, I think it is the technocratic stuff that, specifically when you put it up against Zoran, it's so needless. It's just so useless.
It's that middle manager position that the Democratic Party politicians like to strike, like the middle manager between you and the capital owners. They're the ones who are going to tell yeah, maybe we can do that if after I talk to the boss, the numbers look right, or after I, after we crunch those numbers and everyone takes their share like that, we can afford it. And I think people are hip to it now. They can see that kind of middle manager speak that the Democratic Party weaponizes to, keep things from happening is uniquely unappealing to Americans in trouble.
Yeah, and it's not just Americans. We just had that conversation with Hanno about Germans and how basically these liberal managers lost so much ground in this election.
You know what Claudia Scheinbaum's approval rating is?
80%.
80%.
My queen.
If she was a neoliberal, or even if she was like a sort of squishy progressive that supported Israel's right to defend itself or whatever, every American would know. Like CNN would have a documentary out on her right now that they would have like played commercial free. But because she's about supporting the poor and putting money in their pockets and massive sort of state initiatives that we're afraid of, and also going after a corrupt judiciary, she's going to be portrayed as like an authoritarian or weak enough for us to like bomb her country.
Swing State, I feel that Trump Gaza video was made satirically, but Trump is too vapid and stupid to get it. I mean, I was shocked he posted even an AI rendering of him shirtless. He notoriously does not take his shirt off.
I think it's a dream of those guys. That's what they think about. Jared Kushner's been talking about this for a long time. I think Trump was genuinely tickled by it. I think Netanyahu's genuinely tickled by it. They love that shit.
Burger dude, everyone living paycheck to paycheck is effectively paying a 100% wealth tax, so the majority of Americans are never able to get ahead. So even though it's called an income tax, it's effectively a massive wealth tax. It's only the absurdly wealthy that can afford, that can effectively do not pay taxes. Yeah, I mean, the wealth tax, that's like a Warren kind of brand. But even if you want to go to the estate tax, like, it's portrayed, the Republicans changed it back in the Obama years to a death tax, right? That was the rebrand suggested by Frank Luntz and the pollsters. Because you know why? 99.9% of people don't have estates to even get taxed at 50-ish% before they leave it to their kids. Give me a break.
Yeah, we won't have time to play it, but there's this guy, Dave Rubin. We'll do it in the next couple of days. Dave Rubin debated. And they're like, well, what would you do since you don't want to give all your money away on an individual charitable basis? And he's like, you tax labor less and you tax wealth more. Or wealth, you call it capital. But that's very simple. Labor should be, I would see tax cuts for labor and rinse people who make money with money. Simple.
Yep. Joe Banks, I just saw that Minnesota Senator Tina Smith is not seeking re-election. Would it make sense to pressure her to go all in for the rest of her term? She's been pretty good. But yes, I think Peggy Flanagan is like a likely person to maybe to run in that race. It seems like that's the case. The lieutenant governor under Walz right now. And the final IM of the day. Sad, tired, says the suffering of the Bibas family is heartbreaking, as is the immense loss of Palestinian lives. It comes off as gross and heartless when prominent leftists like Hassan. Oh, okay. Well, this is not the final IM of the day.
No, I want to hear this one, though, because I want to talk about this.
I thought this was positive. Hassan laugh and dismiss the suffering and mourning of Israeli civilians in the name of pro-Palestine activism. I don't know when he did that.
I don't believe he did. I reject the notion that I did, but I would also say it is heinous the way atrocity propaganda is being used by Israel, whether it's this instance or the others, and it should be met with fucking scorn. And people that don't understand how weird it looks in the context of tens and tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dead bodies, to be focusing on the hair color of a few others victims is insane. Are you people insane? You're not helping.
I mean, it's white supremacy, and it's
exactly.
And the fact that they're even focusing on the hair color.
Wake the fuck up. Hassan does great work every goddamn day.
Yeah, of course. I mean, the idea. I'm surprised that anyone in our audience feels this way, but like, can you imagine if it was if they were talking about blonde hair in the way that they talk about the hair color of these kids? Like,
they absolutely would.
They would. And what does that sound like?
Fascism. That's what Zionists are.
Yes. Nicola says Hassan did not do that.
Also, there's plenty it's well known that like red hair is also seen quite frequently in the Middle East through with other backgrounds and ethnicities. Why does it's just a stupid thing to bring in with? I'm sure there's some redheaded kids in Palestine and Gaza that were killed. Why doesn't anyone care about them?
It's a Nazi thing to get in with. It is white supremacist. It needs to be said that it's hysteria. It's effing hysteria the way that this stuff is
presented. Also the family of the family of these kids are talking about how disrespectful the conversation around their deceased loved ones are right now too. Why is no one respecting the family of these kids?
The same reason they didn't give a fuck about the hostages, because they want to use them to do a genocide.
Yeah. Dave from Jamaica, dumbest I am. I've heard from in a while. Let's see if we can find another I am to end on.
Don't criticize Hassan to us, please.
Yeah, I
Shut
don't
the
like
fuck
it.
up.
I don't like it. Especially on this issue. Especially because you know how aligned we are with him on this topic. Well, there's a few more I ams asking about. You guys are just like trying to stir shit now. That Anna monologue about us, which is pretty funny. I was expecting like just put a lot. There's a teleprompter. Lots of research that went into it, and yet no argument was made, it seems. Like, no... people probably don't even know what I'm talking about.
DSA Josh, you're unhinged, and guess what? I'm elated that you watch Majority Report. They deserve you.
It popped up on my like suggested videos list. It didn't have a lot of views, so I didn't watch it because I didn't think it was very good. But like, I saw it. I scrolled past.
Honestly, I skipped around a bit, but when I say it was one of the most bizarre things I've ever seen in my life, it had like all of the trappings of a real, I prepared for this. And you keep wondering like, what do they have? What does she have? What's she going to say next? And even the clips that she would play, like, didn't match her commentary next. It was like somebody that had never made an argument before was asked to make an argument in law school or something like that. And it was completely incomprehensible. But I guess
instead, she plays the role of hall monitor. She polices what one can say, what they should believe, who they can talk to, and what they can talk about.
The famous actor we once knew is looking paranoid and now spiraling.
You know, I like hall monitors. I used to watch that like cartoon show Fillmore all the time. So, you know,
I've been known to be a hall monitor, policing what people say and do. I honestly thought that was Tulsi Gabbard for 1 second. What'd you say?
Don't hall monitors only like police like the halls, like where people like if people can go to class or can't go to class, like they don't really police what you say or do.
Yeah, right. That's a good point. That would be more like cops.
They take a bathroom pass.
or prison guards. All right, guys. The final I am of the day now, and not someone that's trying to goad me into saying something funny. All right, here we go. Rob from Dedham. The thing that infuriates me the most about this whole release the documents thing, whether Epstein or JFK or anything, is that not only is it a limited hangout, but it's completely obscures that the CIA and intelligence in general was developed to serve the most right-wing factions of society. It is by nature ultra-capitalist and anti-left, and these right-wingers, all these right-wingers acting like the CIA is some liberal left-wing entity is one of the most insane things to believe. Exactly right. But it fits into their victim complex, so that's all that matters. Anyway, appreciate the IMs, folks. I think lots of people IMing in right now. Well, if you want to say some of this stuff, IM us tomorrow. We're gonna head out. Appreciate you all. See you tomorrow.